5,000 years ago, in what is now present-day Mesopotamia, a young man named Naru was experiencing his final moments, lying on a mat of woven reeds. He was only in his 20s, surrounded by the once bustling walls of a village that was now eerily silent. Beside him, a young woman named Lila, hundreds of miles away in a remote valley, was also succumbing to a mysterious ailment. Neither of them knew it, but they were victims of an unseen threat that would soon alter the course of human history. The culprit? A deadly pandemic caused by a strain of Vibrio cholerae. While many have heard of cholera in more recent times, researchers are beginning to uncover evidence that this bacterium has roots stretching far back into ancient civilizations. Thousands of years before the modern outbreaks, this pathogen was silently lurking, capable of causing massive devastation. Initially, scholars believed that Vibrio cholerae only posed a risk in the crowded cities of the Industrial Revolution. However, new archaeological finds have revealed that ancient populations faced similar threats. In burial sites throughout Mesopotamia, scientists have discovered skeletal remains with traces of the cholera bacterium preserved in their bones, indicating that outbreaks swept through these communities, leading to high mortality rates. This challenges our understanding of how resilient ancient societies truly were. But what sparked this ancient cholera pandemic? At the time, communities were growing larger, with people living in closer quarters due to the rise of agriculture and the establishment of permanent settlements. This helped facilitate the spread of pathogens. Rice paddies and communal water sources, while essential for life, became breeding grounds for pathogens. As more and more people clustered in these areas, it created a perfect storm for disease transmission. The sanitary practices of the time were rudimentary at best, making them ill-equipped to face such lethal bacteria. The bodies of Naru and Lila were not isolated cases. As researchers delved deeper, they found that entire communities were suffering from the same infections. Mass graves scattered across the region reveal patterns of illness and death clustering within families and neighborhoods. The burials indicated a swift and lethal outbreak, one that moved through communities at an alarming speed, decimating family units within days. One particularly haunting discovery involved a site where dozens of people had been buried together, suggesting that entire households were wiped out by the disease. Their remains carried traces of despair. Many had died in cramped quarters, faces frozen in their final moments of agony. The scene paints a harrowing picture of a community under siege, their lives abruptly cut short by an unseen adversary that thrived on their vulnerabilities. The impact on society was profound. Villages that once thrived rapidly fell into chaos, their populations vanishing at alarming rates. This timeline of deaths closely aligned with signs of societal decline: abandoned settlements, disrupted trade routes, and increased violence as resources dwindled. Panic spread faster than the disease itself, with people fleeing cities and villages, leaving behind relatives and possessions in desperate search of survival. Among the most shocking discoveries were the remnants of ancient medical practices aimed at hygiene and disease prevention. While many people believed in supernatural causes for illness, others began taking practical steps to improve their living conditions. Archaeologists found evidence of early sanitation efforts, including systems for waste disposal and attempts to maintain cleanliness. Remains of pits and trenches were indicative of an understanding of public health dynamics that were far ahead of their time. Additionally, in some burial sites, researchers discovered burnt offerings of herbs and other medicinal plants laid alongside the dead, hinting at an ancient attempt to ward off the Grim Reaper. Despite these efforts, the sheer scale of the pandemic rendered these practices futile in the face of such an unforgiving bacterium. As researchers connected the dots, what appeared to be a gradual decline in human activity was instead a pattern of repeated pandemics influencing the ancient world. Analysis revealed multiple distinct waves of cholera outbreaks that affected different generations, each wave wreaking its own kind of devastation. Some regions were hit harder than others, reflecting a vastly different historical narrative depending on local circumstances. Ancient civilizations faced a constant cycle of fear and loss as cholera resurfaced repeatedly. While earlier generations may have accepted the disease as a part of life, enduring sporadic health crises as unfortunate realities, those who lived through the later outbreaks bore witness to devastation at a scale previously unimaginable. The breakdown of social structures accompanied these health crises, creating an environment where trust eroded and communities fractured. The repercussions of this wave of misery were felt for centuries. The very fabric of cultures began to unravel, and long-held traditions faded as survivors were left too traumatized and diminished in numbers to sustain their legacy. Knowledge, art, and craftsmanship that defined a community's identity became lost, all but erased from history. This saga urges us to re-examine our understanding of the past. The ancient world was vulnerable to infectious diseases in ways we have only recently begun to appreciate, revealing a precarious relationship between societal advancement and health risks. Each skeletal find unearthed in the dust of burial sites tells a story of not just illness and suffering, but also resilience amid adversity. A reminder that as humanity evolved, so did the diseases lurking in the shadows. This history of ancient pandemics mirrors modern-day challenges, as we face our health crises in a world that prides itself on advancements in medicine and technology. The experiences of Nauru and Lila compel us to prioritize public health, hygiene, and community solidarity. Their struggles remind us of the importance of cooperation and communication in times of despair, whether in ancient communities or today's interconnected world. What did the eventual aftermath look like? Recovery was lengthy and fraught with its own set of trials. Archaeological digs reveal that some regions took thousands of years to regain their previous population levels, while others experienced brief resurgences before falling back into disarray. As agricultural practices fluctuated under the pressures of climate change, one can only imagine the anxiety that pervaded the daily lives of those who endured these unrelenting cycles of disease and famine. Interestingly, as a response to these calamities, there were adaptations at both individual and societal levels. Some communities developed better agricultural techniques to prevent future outbreaks, adopting crop rotation and diversifying their food sources to mitigate risks associated with monoculture. In a way, these hardships catalyzed innovations and led to more sustainable practices that would benefit future generations. Simultaneously, the fears of disease fueled changes in social dynamics. The concept of personal space and health awareness began to emerge, with some individuals taking on roles as healers or herbalists, seeking to understand illness beyond just supernatural explanations. This development fostered a sense of community responsibility that would set the stage for future advancements in medicine and public health initiatives. Furthermore, the collapse of large settlements gave way to the rise of smaller, more resilient communities that could react nimbly to emerging threats. People became more mobile, forging new paths between villages where trade and knowledge could flourish without the dense crowding that had once amplified disease transmission. This mobility led to new ideas, cultural exchanges, and innovations that characterized the coming centuries. Amidst all this hardship, stories of survival emerged too. There are accounts of individuals who bravely cared for the sick, risking their own lives to help family and neighbors. These acts of kindness and solidarity became legendary, echoing throughout generations. They are reminders that even in the darkest times, humanity has the potential to rise above adversity. Yet the pall of cholera and other diseases continued to cast a long shadow over the collective memory of these ancient peoples. It left an imprint on cultural beliefs, traditions, and practices. Some may argue that the psychological scars from these health crises altered the course of human development, embedding a deep-seated caution towards urban living that persists even in various cultures today. So what can we take away from the narratives of Nauru and Lila? They are not just historical figures lost in the dust of time. They represent the countless voices of humanity that faced insurmountable odds in the struggle for survival. Their experiences are intrinsically intertwined with how we understand pandemics and public health today. As we navigate our contemporary challenges, we are reminded of the cyclical nature of history. The lessons from ancient pandemics underscore the importance of learning from the past while recognizing our vulnerability to diseases that, despite all our advancements, still have the potential to wreak havoc. As we conclude this exploration of ancient epidemics that shape human history, let us remember to carry forth the spirit of resilience, innovation, and community collaboration that emerged from these difficult times. When looking at the past, we find guidance for the future, teaching us that in the face of adversity, it is our compassion and connectedness that ultimately propel us forward.